Jamie's going to be at first. So Jamie, come on up.
Sure. Thanks, Troy. So I'm going to be talking about my client, Koru. Koru is a predictive hiring company out of Seattle. They're a startup. They've been around for a little bit less than a year in the business model that they're in. And what they do is they are a software company that identifies personality drivers of high success candidates in job positions. And then they use those profiles to fit your specific company and the specific roles at your company to do some data analysis and screen applicants that are going to be top quality workers for you. So it's sort of like Match.com, but for job placement. And so in this case, they deal with a lot of people who are looking to hire millennials, and millennials don't have a lot on their resumes. And so they were looking for ways to, how can we help people recognize that our program will help you find a top performing millennial who doesn't have a lot of experience. So they also had a bigger problem than that though. So one of the things that's going on and a challenge that they were facing, and part of the reason they partnered with us, is because they had a very aggressive Q1 MQL goal. An MQL is a marketing qualified lead. It's not just a lead, it's someone who has said, you know what, I've engaged with marketing materials and I'm probably interested. So in 2017, Koru averaged 103 MQLs per month. And here they were in Q1 of this year being asked to produce, on average, 179 MQLs per month, which is a 173% increase over last year. And that new goal is based on no data. So it's just a goal. And they were like, how are we ever supposed to create anywhere near this amount of leads? Not only that, they had limited time and limited resources for creating new content. And they have a database of people who they've been emailing and emailing, but they weren't getting the amount of leads out of them that they wanted. And so they needed a way to wake up that database. And we came up with a strategy. We needed a way to create a low stakes piece of content that would help turn regular leads into MQLs that was already based on something that they had or some research that they had, because we didn't have time to go out and make something brand new. We also wanted it to be the kind of thing that was really user-friendly, because you don't want people having to fill out a lot of forms when they're already interested in you and you already know a lot about them from your database. So really easy user experience. We also wanted to wake up that database by sending them a short series of emails that would get their attention. And then we came up with a plan for afterwards to stir up some dormant accounts, just for fun. No, just to get more MQLs off of the ones we had. So here's what Koru had. Their least aggressive piece of content, the one that was most in the awareness stage and would require the lowest amount of interest to sort of engage with it, was this video of their co-founder doing a little audience test where he was saying, okay, how do you predict who's going to be a top performing sales rep for your company? And he had a bunch of characteristics, soft skills, because remember they deal in personality traits and soft skills, and who's an underperformer and who's an overperformer. And the results were sort of surprising, because you see teamwork suddenly ending up under the underperformers when a lot of job descriptions for sales reps say, must be a good team player. So we're finding like a disconnect that we thought was really interesting in their content. So we said, okay, let's create a single question interactive quiz based on what you just saw on that video's images. We wanted to have a very specific user experience so that we just got the information from the lead that would either make them an MQL or not. And then we wanted to come up with an email that we're testing different tones to see what worked best with their audience and their database to get people to engage. So a little email series. So here's the solution that we came up with. You ready? It is called Which Skills Matter? And it's a question about what traits should you look for when hiring a millennial candidate. And this was going out to the types of people who work in HR at companies and are getting piles of resumes and trying to sift through them very quickly. And so these sorts of soft skills are a great way to do that. And this is just a nice, easy way to ease into the idea that soft skills and hiring go together. So that if their database wasn't really thinking about that, maybe now they were. And the user experience was, if you came to this quiz and we didn't know that you were from the database, You got 4 questions you had to fill in. Your first name, your last name, your business email, and how many people are you hiring? But if we emailed you from the database, we were able to say, we have that other information, and we know who you are. Why don't you just tell us how many people you're hiring? 1 question. That's it. So nice and smooth and easy. It's actually sort of complicated to do in most platforms. And so it was really exciting that we were able to make that happen for them. And then you get your answer. Here are the right answers. You were so close, you missed one. Oops. So the results. I'm happy to say that as of yesterday, the end of February, Koru hit their very aggressive MQL goal, and that this was a huge part of that. They're now at 103% of their lofty, based on nothing, mathematical goal. They had a quiz completions from this of 207 quiz completions, and they got 151 MQLs from this campaign. And then the email messaging that we did, you can see that the pink one is quiz completions, and the teal one are MQL rate. So we can't control who was in their database, who would be an MQL, but we can say, look, we attracted the right people, and we got them to engage. And we found that email number 1, which had a pain-based messaging, was the one that had the highest quiz completion rate. So there was something about that pain email that got people to engage the most. So here's a little bit of the breakdown based on the emails. You can see the gray bar is the benchmark of how all of their other emails last year did. We then have email 1, which is, and then it goes 2 and 3. Email 1 had that pain messaging, and we can see that it had the highest quiz completion rate, but the lowest click-through open rate, which is if they opened it, were they going to convert? So the pain messaging got them to open. But then we see that the highest completion rate happened in email number 3, which was based on aspirational messaging. So there was something about the aspirational messaging in the body that got them to actually go through and complete the assessment. So we learned that pain gets them in the door, but aspiration gets them to take it. And we thought that was a really interesting message for that audience, because you could then use that in all sorts of other messaging campaigns. So next steps. This campaign targeted only talent acquisition leaders, but there are other audiences in their database that we could segment on. And so then we're promoting it to those audiences too. We're also going to create a follow-up nurture for them that will allow, right now their sales team got so many marketing qualified leads that they are inundated. Their sales team cannot keep up with the number of qualified leads that marketing produced this quarter. And that's a great place to be in. But those leads need to be addressed. And so we're coming up with a nurture email track that will help take a little bit of pressure off the sales team and turn a marketing qualified lead into hopefully a fully sales qualified lead that's ready to start purchasing. We also decided, you know what, let's promote this quiz on social media. So we're going to do a Facebook campaign to a targeted audience to try and get them through that 1 question asset and get them a little bit more interested in what soft skills can do for hiring. And then we also came up with a plan to update the quiz questions on a regular cadence, because there's 4 different questions we had data for, and so we can create a full series of these quiz campaigns every quarter. And we already have those. When we created the 1, we said, let's go for it. Let's create all 4 at once, and we'll see how, so that way you don't have to go back and do it. You're investing in this, and it will pay off throughout the year. So just a few key learnings from this. The interactive content was a win. Getting people to engage with the quiz question was way more of an investment from them in a good way than just watching a video, which is pretty passive. Quizzes can be a very powerful lead generation tool, so that if you're hitting that hump of, hey, we have a lot of people in our database or people who we want to reach and we don't know if they're the right candidates for us, a quiz can help separate the wheat from the chaff, but it can also say, give people sort of a fun way to interact with you while you learn something about them and they learn something either about themselves or about you. The smart user experience, the idea that we're not asking for information we already have, when we email them, that's, I think, really huge. It creates a very low friction conversion process. And I think that's one of the reasons why we saw such a high clip of MQLs coming in where they weren't before. It was just asking for less information than usual. And then we also did the test of the emotional messaging so that we would know and learn something about how do we reach this audience again in the future in a way that's meaningful to them, but also gets us the marketing information that we want.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. What key insights that I took away from that is as marketers, we're always looking at, okay, we got to go create more content. We need more content to fuel our programs. But this actual campaign that was done said, okay, let's just take a piece of content out there in a really simple way, just say we don't have to go write a whole ebook or white paper or this thing that takes a lot of time. Let's put together a quiz. Be really simple, and yet still has a great engagement with the audience. So that was a key takeaway that I saw from this. Questions, though, from anybody in the audience about this program?
Sir?
You said one question quiz. What can you learn from that?
That's a really great point. I think we often hear quiz. I think BuzzFeed has taught us to think that a quiz has like at least 9 or 10 questions and is super revealing. In this case, we just wanted it to be a lead generation activity, something sort of light and interactive. We didn't need people to give us more information about them at this stage. We just wanted a more interactive, light way to build awareness and build a connection. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Do you think this would get stale if you tried to do it? Well, you did talk about the fact that you developed several more. I face this with a nonprofit that I support where every time I engage with them, there's this quiz and they ask me very leading questions and I know they want me to donate money, so I see right through it. So I'm just wondering, do you think people would ultimately end up seeing through it or it might get stale eventually?
So maybe if we were hitting them too often, I think if we spread them out, and also once you answer this, you never see it again. We've done a lot of filtering so that once you've answered this question, you're not going to be emailed about it again. It's not going to be advertised to you on social media. You'll be getting a new question based on the industry. So there's ones for like financial analysts. So instead of hitting hiring and sales, we'll hit hiring and finance. Things like that. And also the questions themselves, I'll go back really quickly if that's ways back. That's fine. The question itself wasn't particularly about the company. It was about testing your knowledge. So hopefully the idea that they're testing something about themselves against their expectations of the world will keep it interesting and keep it a little bit fresh. Great question.
Did you try different formats, colors, content in this particular question to see which one resonated best?
We did not test this yet. So there is a way, though, in this quiz platform to create a champion version and then add a challenger and see if it beats it or not. So it's totally set up to do that. We just didn't do that in this case.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was that quiz platform?
It's called Ion Interactive. It can be highly customizable, which is one of the reasons we've been using it a lot. But it also has an out-of-the-box sort of functionality. Oh, is there another question?
One more question? No? Repeat that one.
Oh, so the question was, can I explain a little bit more about what I meant when I said emotional messaging? So part of that is the motivation in the messaging of the email. So we had 3 in this case, one which was pain. And so it would have a subject line, something like, do you know what to look for in millennial hires? Getting at a pain of the audience that these are people who don't have a lot of work experience, and so how could you know what to look for on their resume? Or it could be something like intrigue, which is, can you recruit a top millennial? Something that asks them a little bit about themselves. And then the third one was aspiration, which is quiz yourself to improve millennial hiring. So each one of those gets at the same topic of the quiz, but it does it through different emotional tracks for the user who would be reading it, and sort of stirs a different part of them each time. At least that's the intention.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks,
so much,
everybody.
Jamie.